Hello and welcome to this particular session for your Vivit SIG talk. Today, we will be talking on the topic of quality and testing, and for DevOps and performance testing powered by voice. We will be having two speakers today next, and Vivit SIG talk, keep using the hashtag for Vivit SIG talk, and you can also send in questions via that hashtag as well. Next. All right, so one thing at the top of these sessions we like to take care of is how do we go forward to have even more of these topics and different types of things. So if you are interested in participating as a SIG talk speaker for one of our 2018 or even coming up 2019 quality and testing topics, or want to suggest a speaker or a topic, take a moment to answer the survey, and that will be at the end of this broadcast as well. Next. Today's SIG talk is hosted by myself, Petar Paskarich. I'm currently with Bank of America as a AVP performance engineer, and I am one of the co-leaders for the performance engineering special interest group with Vivit. I've been in the QA world for at least 21 years now, I believe it is, and have grown up with the products that we all love and use, especially off of the older Mercury Interactive and HP and now Micro Focus lines. Quality Center, Test Director, Performance Center, pretty much all the APM tools there. So I'm very excited to lead this particular SIG talk, and we'll see how to do some extensions to our really nice, really cool tools via voice, as well as some of the current trends in performance engineering. Next. We have our two speakers today, which are Joe Friedrichsen and Naveen Kumar. Namachivan. Let me go here. Let's see, Joe Friedrichsen is the Managing Director for Blue Cross Blue Shield, Rhode Island. We have some information on him to share, and that is that through his love of technology and its impact on customer experiences, Joe's personal journey brought him through most functional IT roles within financial services and insurance industries. He's balancing business, technical, and people management practices, provides insights applied to everything he does. His most memorable accomplishments were seeing how the technology weaves into the business processes to deliver effective customer experiences. He's an evangelist for DevOps and Agile practices. He helps organizations transform the way they work. And the majority of the focus he has is on the people and the associated culture change needed to drive long-term value. Now with Naveen, sorry about that. With Naveen Kumar, he is a performance test lead with Infosys Limited. And Naveen Kumar has about 12 years of experience in software testing. He's highly proficient in test automation and performance testing, including LoadRunner, JMeter, and Performance Center. And he's also the moderator of the Micro Focus official LinkedIn groups, LoadRunner and Performance Center, and True Client groups. He has blogs at QAinsights.com and created perftractor.xyz. It's a simple tool to compare performance testing tools and pricing. He's also the author of Earn Cash by Performance Testing, Excel and MS Excel, and the complete guide on HP LoadRunner web controller. Thank you very much, both Joe and Naveen Kumar. Go next. All right, and a little bit of housekeeping to set things up. Today's live session is intended for all Vivit members. The on-demand recording, slide deck, and questions and answers will be posted on the Vivit website, visible for all members. Additionally, today's slide deck, questions and answers, and on-demand recording will be made available to you. We will send you a link via email once they are posted to the Vivit website. And if you have questions as we go along, please type and send them in using the questions pane in the webinar control panel showed on the next slide. And there is a picture of where the control panel lives. And we have and that's the the picture of the GoToWebinar control panel, and it usually appears in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. Simply to submit a question, make sure that the questions pane is expanded and type in your question and then click on send. All right, so let's get started with today's SIG talk, and I will pass this on over to Naveen Kumar. Welcome very much to the SIG talk, and you have full control.
Yeah, thanks, Peter. Thanks everyone for joining this SIG talk. So today we are going to see performance testing powered by voice using these agendas. So we are going to discuss about the performance testing trends, and we are going to see how to leverage the IoT devices for performance testing, and we are going to see some of the use cases and the advantages. So as you know, performance testing is a critical phase in any software development life cycle. Those days are gone where you involve performance testing at the end of the life cycle or end of the release. Now everything is agile, everything is fast, and we'll have an enterprise pipeline where you deploy your performance test scripts. So once the build is completed, it automatically kicks off your run, and then you can see the results. And we have a cloud infrastructure, which is scalable, serverless, and we have IoT devices, and we have edge computing where you test your performance at the closest to the user, latency testing, etc. So these are some of the current trends in performance testing. So the thought process here is to bring the IoT devices, to bring smart assistants from your mobile to performance testing, and how we can leverage those skill set so that we can ensure your end users are happy with respect to response time, scalability, and stability. And also it will help you to sustain your business and stay ahead of the competition. So the main idea here is to bring the IoT devices for performance testing. Right now in the world, there are around 8.8 billion IoT devices which communicates, talks to each other. It can be useful for getting a weather report, or you can use it for home automation, surveillance, healthcare. So the use cases are exponentially growing with respect to IoT devices. We have wearable devices. From mobile, you can access any device using the IoT-enabled stuff. So the main idea is to bring those smart assistants and how we can leverage those in performance testing. So it is not about IoT performance testing. It is more about how we can leverage the IoT devices for performance testing. So for example is Amazon Echo or Google Home Mini. So you can use any devices and then you can kick off the performance test runs from your mobile or from your device, and then you can seamlessly monitor your performance. So to get started, what I have done is I have created a sample skill using Alexa SDK using Node.js. Here the keyword is, the skill name is Perf Guru. So whatever you are seeing in the bold underlined word, that is the skill name, which can be customizable. And whichever the word you are seeing in the bold letter, it is the intent. So here, if you ask Alexa to ask Perf Guru to start a smoke load test, so what it will do is, it will go to the backend of your test infrastructure, and then it will kickstart your load test. So based on the scenario or based on the test you have created. And similarly, if you want to customize your runs, for example, I want to extend my duration, or I have to terminate my test. So everything you can do it from your voice. So the main use case is no need to log in into your dashboard. Without logging in, you can do whatever you want. So how you create a scenario. So you manually navigate, you can you have to allocate time slots, and then you have to kick off your run. So nothing to do with manual effort. Everything is powered by voice. So under the hood, what's happening is these skills, it's talking to your infrastructure using REST APIs. I'm sure many of you are using Performance Center or Load Runner environment. So if you take Performance Center has a REST APIs. So by leveraging those REST APIs, you can authenticate yourself from the skill, and then you can create a scenario, you can run a scenario, you can get the results, you can stop a scenario, etc. So this is not related to only to Amazon Alexa or Amazon Echo. You can use this particular skill in any smart assistant platform. You can use it in Google, or you can use it in any other open source smart assistants. So, so the main use case here is no need to wake up from the bed. I mean, once you wake up, no need to log in into your corporate network. No need to log in into your intranet. Without that, using your mobile, you can command your test, and then automatically it will trigger your tests, and then you can it will notify you if there is any anomalies. For example, if there is a performance violation, then you will get a notification to your email, or you will get a notification to your SMS to your mobile, and you can go to office, and then you can trace the status, and then you can take the next steps. And also you can block time slots by voice. So you can say you can talk to Perf Guru to allocate some slots, or you can schedule some slots, and also you can raise defects. So everything is powered by voice. It is not related to only to Performance Center. You can use this particular skill using for Dynatrace or Zira. If you're using Zira, you can write a test cycle, or you can create a bug in Zira. And also if you're using Zephyr, if you're using QC, so any tools you are using which has the REST API as a backbone, you can interact with those platforms, and then you can get it done by the voice. So no need to log in, no need to manually walk through the steps from the browser. Everything will be done from voice. So you can just keep the Amazon Echo device in front of your desk, and then you can just command it. And if there is any anomalies detected, it will automatically, visually you can see if there is something wrong. It will lighten up the lights, the ring in red color, and then you can log in into the dashboard, and you can see what's going on. So here you have a full control over your voice. So whatever the methods they have deployed in Performance Center or any other tool, you can utilize everything in the Alexa skill, and then you can save a lot of time and effort. And also you can integrate with this CI/CD. So whatever the CI/CD you are using, you can easily integrate, and then which will give you full efficiency with respect to operations. So this particular skill is available in GitHub. So you have to just change the endpoint, and you need to refactor some of the code based on your needs. Then you are good to go. So you can visually also see, you can automate the browsers as well. If you're not sure how it is running, you can talk to the browsers from the Alexa skill. It will automatically launch the browser, and then it will display the results for you. And this skill, you need a valid access key, because it communicates with using security credentials. So it is not exposed to anyone. It is embedded in the code. And if you don't want to embed the code, embed the secret key in the code, what you can do, you can create a role, and then the role will take care of everything for you. And apart from this, you can have a full control for the analytics. So if some of the voice is not rendered properly, some of the voice is not working, you can see everything in the dashboard, which request is failing, which request is passing, everything you can see it in the Alexa dashboard, or if you are using Google, you can see it in the Google dashboard. So this will help you to drill down which is failing and which is working fine, and how many people are using this skill in your organization. If someone is tampering your request, so everything you can trace, and then you can solve all of your problems from the single dashboard. So the main thought process here in this skill is everything from the voice. So nothing you do manually from the browser. So this will give you the full control for your performance tests.
Thank you, Naveen. I had a quick question for you from my side. When you're looking at the using voice control, say the Alexa skills especially, and you're crossing, like say, through firewalls and stuff to make that happen, how is that bridged? Or have you run into any problems with corporate security
Yeah, in our enterprise, we have deployed intranet-based skills. Actually, you can communicate only to intranet. It will not expose to the internet. So you have full control over the virtual private network.
Okay, great. And then one last little question, because this is a really neat topic that I'd like to actually bring to my organization as well, is when you're looking at performance center credentials and then the project mappings through the SDK there. So the Alexa skill, then would it use just a single user ID to attach, or is it based off of each person's, say, Alexa endpoint and their registration?
It is registered to each person actually. Based on your credentials, you can embed it, and then you can use that skill for you.
Oh, very good. Thank you so much. I'm sure we'll have some more questions in the end for you on this as well, and we'll cover those. Everyone in the audience, please either Twitter in your questions or type them in via the WebEx pane. So next up, we are going to look at the next half of the process, and for the SIG talk, we're going to do why DevOps tools can't deliver value. And Joe Friedrichsen, this is your particular panel, so please take it away.
Well, thank you. In particular, thank you to have me here to discuss about DevOps. Again, the topic of my conversation today is really about why DevOps tools can't deliver value. And so let me start off by at least briefing everyone on the concept of DevOps for those who aren't as familiar with it. So DevOps is really a combination of the word development and the word operations. And it really is meant to talk about how do we reduce the friction between development and operations as it relates to the software development lifecycle. And over a period of time, DevOps has also been really a view of how do we automate that software development lifecycle so that there's much more efficiency, much more speed going through the system. But again, it's not about the tools that deliver value. So how we've approached this at Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Rhode Island is you really need to fall in love with the problem and not the solution. In this case, DevOps is the solution, but it's not the actual problem we were trying to solve. We originally thought our problem related a lot to a lot of the inaccurate testing environments that we had, whether it was the development, the SIT, and the UAT. Hopefully something you all can appreciate as far as the environments you probably deal with. And so that was our premise, is we're having issues with our testing environments. So we went and actually spoke with all the various people that are involved in managing the test environments, whether it's developers, development managers, operations people, subject matter experts. In the context of when I talk about operations, part of the context of that operations is the quality assurance organization. I actually happen to run both the business analyst and the quality analyst here at Blue Cross of Rhode Island. And what we heard is we actually had these conversations, and the very open-ended conversations is really around there were way too many handoffs and too much manual work that was happening. And that really led to us to really isolate what the problem was. We heard that all of our tools were old and needed modernization. We had a set of existing automated regression suite, and when we actually started to dig into it, we realized that it wasn't as automated as we thought, and our release management process wasn't as flexible as we needed it to be. And I'll give you a scenario. When we started talking about this whole problem, we also started looking at Agile as far as moving from a waterfall to an Agile process. And what we determined is there was no way we can start adopting Agile, whether it's Scrum, Kanban, or extreme programming, you name it. There was no way we could start adopting that without solving this problem first. And you know, if we can't have a flexible release management process, for example, then we couldn't deploy code at the end of a sprint. So really what we ended up really focusing in on is how do we drive efficiencies throughout the software development lifecycle. And here we talk about really a fool and his tool are soon departed. You know, DevOps is really around software engineering culture, and it's a culture change. And that's what's critical here is tools do not change a culture. You really need to focus on the people, the process, and then the technology in order to orchestrate a really, truly remarkable culture change. And again, culture is also not an overnight, you know, changing a culture is not an overnight activity. It is a multi-year journey that begins with a first step, and it needs to be also a roadmap of conversations. Really, you know, you can't do everything at once. You really need to have a roadmap over multiple years of how to continually transform that culture to an ideal state that you've identified. And that's what we did, is we actually sat down and talked about what are the end state behaviors we expect from anyone inside of IT. Automation is really critical to that, but also we focused on things like zero waste, not having waste in the system. You know, if you have a wasteful process and you automate it, it's still a wasteful process. We looked at things like be data driven, right? As we make decisions and we need to, as we try and make decisions, we need data to help tell us what those decision points should be, and then we can manage and measure moving forward from a metrics perspective. We also looked at how does leadership play a role in changing a culture, in changing it as far as clearing roadblocks. And for those who are in an agile practice, even things like the servant leadership aspect of agile. And we talk about agile being one of our critical behaviors, but it's not the extent of you're using agile to execute your projects, that you have an agile mindset, that you are allowed to think through problems, that you are allowed to focus clearly and dedicated on the problem that you have at hand, and that you can test and learn. So we actually documented a lot of these behaviors of the culture that we are driving towards that will really help us focus in on that organizational culture change that we needed to make in order to bring the biggest value to our members. And really, at the end of the day, when you think about culture change, it really is demonstrated at the top leadership. So a lot of our focus, and what I have here on this slide is it's actually something from the Puppet Lab State of DevOps 2017 report. As a side note, their 2018 report should be coming out here shortly if it's not already been done. But what they did is they've actually, over the past 7 or 8 years, they've surveyed organizations repeatedly, really focused on DevOps. And in the 2017 report, they added a couple of extra questions around leadership and how does leadership play a role in top performing organizations. And what they found is, if you look at organizations that do some similar work, and again, similar work was based off of the questions that they asked, they found that organizations that had transformational leaders actually had much better results than others that were pretty much doing the exact same thing. The satisfaction of the people inside that company was much higher than the satisfaction of a similar performing organization. The speed at which they released tools or released their solution to their customers was much greater. It really got down to your transformational leaders are those leaders that can really set the tone. They have that vision, over multiple years. They have that inspirational communication styles that not only inspires but motivates. They have this intellectual stimulation. They love having the conversations with folks about, the technology, the process problems. And really, at the end of the day, that stimulation is more about listening than it is talking. They're a very supportive leadership. Again, I mentioned the servant leadership, but that's really what the essence of this is from the culture change perspective. And then there's the aspect of those leaders around the personal recognition, recognizing individuals, making it public, really driving, really talking about how those behaviors meet the goals, how they can demonstrate somebody's individual behaviors and point to how that's improved work quality. And really, at the end of the day, those leaders are what changes the culture. On the flip side, managers, directors, VPs, if they are not demonstrating these behaviors, if they're not spending the time and having the conversations around the DevOps culture and what's needed to be done, then the culture will fail. So we spent a lot of time not only talking to the developers and the operations people and quality assurance, the architects, but then we also spent a lot of time very specifically communicating to all the managers of people in the organization and made sure that they understood what was expected of them, and also shared with individual contributors what they should expect from their leaders. So we started to drive a lot of, maybe at times some tension, some healthy tension between the individual and their leader, but it was all with a viewpoint of how do we really get this culture to move forward. And again, we spent a good deal of time defining the what and the changes to the process, really to give us the direction on how to get there. So we had some very antiquated processes here, but we really spent a lot of time focused on our release management, our branching strategy from a code perspective, our project delivery lifecycle. What are the changes to how we execute projects that need to happen as you adopt to this DevOps mentality? Code design, code review. Again, most of us are, QA folks at our heart, and really at the end of the day, we focused a lot of our attention on how do you design better code. Now that's not anything to do with tools. It really is about how to effectively design your code. I always joke about it is if you still have poorly designed code with DevOps, it's just going to make it through the pipeline quicker. But at the end of the day, it's still poorly designed code with probably a lot of technical debt associated with it. So code design, code reviews are two sides of the coin as far as making sure not only quality is built in, but also that you're reducing actually your technical debt. You're eliminating it, in fact, if your code design is done correctly. As I mentioned before, we found that our automated regression suite wasn't really automated. And so we spent a lot of time focused on how do we really truly automate our test execution in a way that it actually has a lifecycle management to it. So we developed a whole process around how do you identify test cases that need to be automated? How do you go through and measure that those are being automated? How do you measure to make sure that your automation regression is executing properly and in the time frame that you need it to execute? For example, we also had our test automation suite running over multiple days. And because there were so many handoffs, in the process and so many stops and starts and human intervention in there. So really the goal was how do we reduce our regression, our automated regression from taking 3 to 4 days to being run in a 24-hour cycle. and the team just really, once they understood, what the goal is and why we needed to do that, they met it, really flawlessly. And that relates really to the release management structure, that if you want to release more frequently, you can't have a regression that's spending all week, making sure that nothing is wrong. And the other process we changed across the board is just the software development lifecycle. It's just looking at all the elements of that and really changing where it made sense to change those, so that we could drive the efficiencies that we were expecting. So again, a lot of our time was around mapping out current state processes, and then how do we streamline those processes moving forward. And then based off of your people focus, your process focus, we then brought in the tools. So here's really our tool slide. We decided first and foremost that the one tool that we were not going to change in our process was actually Quality Center. So that was the heart and soul of our operations. And after a lot of conversations with different products that are out there that could replace it, we found that we didn't want to change the heart and soul, right, of what we do from not only a QA perspective, but everything that we do. Every developer has a skill set that they know how to use Quality Center. Every QA person knows how to use Quality Center. So it's not a skill set that we wanted to change, because we were changing almost everything else about a person's life. So we went out and looked at really a lot of open source applications, and then we also looked at how do we use Quality Center in a much more a broader way. So we actually decided also to bring all of our requirements into Quality Center, so that we could have the requirements, we could have test cases against those requirements, we can have test execution, we can have defect management, all the way through those requirements for every project. And for the first time ever, we actually had full traceability of requirements from the beginning of the project all the way through execution. So that was really critical for us to have that visibility and start using HP the way, the Quality Center the way it should be. The other open source tools that we brought in were GitLab. So GitLab is really, the code repository. I mean, most developers have a code repository, so bringing in another code repository is not something you really want to do because it causes confusion. But when you actually had to look at every single application and make sure that the applications themselves had the right branching strategy, and that branching strategy could be executed inside of a tool and managed inside of the tool, that's really where GitLab really starts to shine, is really the execution of that branching strategy by applications. Jenkins is really the CI/CD pipeline that really starts to drive a lot of the automation. So it is, as something is ready to be deployed from development into SIT, it's really Jenkins that goes out and does all the automation. And I'll talk a little bit more about Jenkins in a second. The one that I really love is SonarQube. It's such a great tool. SonarQube does static code analysis. So what that really means is it really reviews the way the developer wrote their code and says, how well did you write it against the standards of that code, whether it's JavaScript and .NET, C++, whatever the case may be. It analyzes that code and tells you, did you write it well or not? And if not, it tells you exactly where in the code that you didn't write it. It suggests ways to change it. It's a really powerful tool to really change those behaviors, again, around that code design, and really helps facilitate also code reviews. We had other tools like Artifactory. We had a whole suite of kind of the XUnit tools, JUnit, SOAP UI. And then we also used Selenium we brought in Selenium for a lot of our automation efforts, particularly around, we're a big Salesforce shop here. So Salesforce is actually, they pretty much say to use Selenium. So we had a combination of Selenium UFT for a lot of our test automations. But really what happens is Jenkins is that engine that drives everything. The way we developed this and deployed it, we have Jenkins that goes and notices that a merge request is needed from a GitLab perspective. It goes, it pulls all those together. It then does a build of that. It's using, Ant and Artifactory to help do that build process. And then it goes and does it goes and automates the quality scanning through SonarQube. It then goes in and runs smoke tests. So we actually broke our regression into smoke tests to test the application-specific elements of it. The regression to really test all the interdependencies inside the code, externally to the code. So Jenkins actually calls out to Selenium and does a lot of the smoke test. We actually also go through and do functional testing at the end. Again, manual testing when we need to. The other thing we had Jenkins do, and you might hear some folks reply, really call it DevSecOps or Development Security Operations. We actually integrated with Jenkins the ability to have a security scan against the code. Again, similar to static code analysis, which will tell you how you develop, in your language of choice. The security scan will actually look at, did you introduce any security vulnerabilities that need to be fixed before you go into production? So Nadeep talked about, the CI/CD pipeline, the continuous integration, continuous development pipeline, and really it is all about Jenkins that would help us really to automate a tremendous amount of work that was all done manually. And with that, I will send it back to Patar to go through general Q&A.
Yes, thank you very much, Joe. At this time, if you have any questions, feel free to add them into the question pane, and we will ask the presenters appropriately what they would be that you have. But we do have a few questions that have come in, and if we'd like to go over a few of those. And let's see, the first one we have, actually, let's go back to Naveen on his topic. And one is, how do you implement this skill in Performance Center?
Hi, Peter. Yeah. So to integrate this with Performance Center, you need to contact your administrator and get the REST APIs are enabled or not. So if the REST APIs are enabled, you can get the IP address of the Performance Center, and then you can start implementing the authentication. Then you can access your domain and the projects. Then you can build your own scenarios, and you can start running the tests.
Okay, so it really is as easy as just modifying those arguments, basically, and you can get it hooked in.
That's correct, yes.
That's quite amazing, and something I'm definitely going to be trying very soon in our sandbox environments. We had the other question that popped up for you, actually, was, is this integratable with JMeter at all?
Yes, you can integrate this with JMeter, not directly with JMeter. You can use cloud-based tools like BlazeMeter or Redline 13. So they have a REST APIs in the backbone. So you can leverage those REST APIs, and then you can integrate with this skill. Okay.
And then from earlier in your talk, a question came up. So as long as you have the REST API, and we can use the Perf Guru as a skeleton to pretty much hook into any of those as an Alexa skill, is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, if you want to use it for Google, you have to refactor the code.
Okay.
The logic stays the same. You have to just change the endpoint. The methods will be same.
Okay, very nice. And then one last final one we had come in for you was going around using this with the CI/CD pipeline. Having voice triggers, is that somewhat detrimental to the process, or how does that integrate through for you?
So this skill is not a out of the box solution for seamless integration basically. So this skill is a productivity improvement. So if you want to improve your productivity, you can use the skill. But if you want to integrate this with CI/CD, you can use the same endpoints. For example, Performance Center has a plugin for Jenkins. So there is no such plugin available for your tool. You can use this skills endpoints, and then you can deploy. You can write your own Groovy script in Jenkins, and then you can integrate with the CI/CD. So there will be no manual intervention. Based on how you write the code, the less you interfere with your execution.
Oh, very nice. Thank you so much. And then Joe had a couple questions for you, and specifically, when you've rolled out this whole culture change, was it a top-down approach or grassroots bottom-up or something in between, and how did that affect the effectiveness of that change?
Yeah, that's a great question. We actually thought through our communication strategy from the very beginning, and we went down the path of really the hybrid approach. So we did have a lot of top-down communications. In some cases where something might have been very contentious, like process change that might have been very contentious, we did do that top-down. But for the most part, it was really bottom-up. So we actually talked with a lot of folks from all the different application areas, the operations areas, and if somebody had a passion about helping, we actually anointed them as evangelists. And so we spent a lot of time communicating out to them as well and sharing a lot more depth of information to them so that they could go out and really talk to their teams and get some feedback. So it was really an approach where we had to really address it from both top down and bottom up.
Hey, great. Yeah, because I've been through a few these transformations myself over the last 20 years or so with different varying success rates. So yeah, definitely very interested in seeing how that was approached, and it sounds like it was very successful. And then one final other question that came up was that it seems to be common that basically a lot of the CI and CD and DevOps approaches seem to segregate out the performance engineering cycle as well. Do you have any comments on how that was preserved within this particular transformation?
So we did not, one of the things we did not do because we wanted to stay focused is we actually automated kind of the easy stuff. I will say it, the easy stuff, okay. The ones that also provided the most value. So we did not actually do anything from a performance, to include the CI in the pipeline, the CI/CD pipeline, anything from a performance engineering perspective. Kind of in parallel, we were actually spending a lot of time maturing our performance engineering processes. So we elected not to do anything kind of in the first wave of activities around performance engineering, other than, and this applies to both our performance engineering as well as our Selenium and UFT scripts. The one thing we did do is as those teams were writing all their scripts, we actually had those scripts also scanned. So you can think of like kind of some interesting things of you're scanning, scripts that scan the code. But we actually built that capability so that we wanted to make sure that as you were writing your Selenium scripts, you weren't writing them poorly, that we focused on code design, code scanning in the same elements, and even the performance engineering scripts are all in a central repository where it makes sense we scan those, to make sure they were well written before they executed inside their specific tools. But we never did anything with performance engineering in our CI/CD pipeline, at least not yet.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for the insightful answer there. I think, and with that is the end of the questions that have come in so far, and we can go on to the next slide. if you have that. Yep. And say, so for this, for upcoming Vivit webinars listed below, be sure to register for our upcoming Vivit webinars listed there and let your colleagues and customers know as well. We hope you can all join us for those. The one for October 18th for IT operations, optimize hybrid cloud environments with OpsBridge and get third-party metrics, events topology, and log data into your OpsBridge. And then the second one coming up November 6th, the Founder Spotlight Series, which will be with our Vivit director and leader, Bob Cruz. And that should be a very exciting one as well. Okay. And then finally, thank you for attending today's webinar. Be sure to complete the short survey after the webinar ends. That will pop up. We would like your feedback for future SIG Talk topics. Just a reminder that the full webinar recording, along with individual session replays and slide deck, will be posted to the Vivit website. In the next few days, you will receive an email with those links. And with that, I would like to thank our speakers, Joe and Naveen, for today's SIG Talk, and hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Peter.